I arrived at my parents' countryside home with a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. The annual summer barbecue was well underway, a celebration that always promised laughter, shared memories, and the aroma of freshly grilled fare. The garden, festooned with colorful bunting and fairy lights, buzzed with life as relatives and old friends mingled under the golden glow of the late afternoon sun. Children darted between clusters of adults, their playful shrieks merging with the soft hum of conversations. It was a scene reminiscent of countless past summers, yet something felt subtly off this time. I stepped through the wooden gate, greeted by the familiar sight of my mother bustling around the outdoor kitchen and my father engaging in animated banter with an old school friend. The warm scents of rosemary, garlic, and smoky barbecue filled the air, inviting everyone to partake in the shared joy of the day. As I made my way toward the heart of the gathering, I couldn't help but notice the soft murmurs of delight and the clinking of glasses as stories of years gone by were recounted. Yet amid this joyful clamor, a quiet unease began to nestle within me. Standing beside a table laden with fresh salads and fruit, I spotted Dylan, my partner of several years. His presence was usually a source of comfort, yet today he appeared distant, his eyes scanning the crowd with a reserved coolness. When our gazes briefly met, his smile was polite but devoid of its usual warmth. I felt a subtle shift, a delicate, almost imperceptible change in the air between us. It was as if an unspoken question hung in the space, a quiet admission that something was amiss. While I attempted to immerse myself in the festivities, laughter echoing around me and the rustle of summer breezes weaving through the trees, my mind was occupied with thoughts of that distant look. Every shared conversation and hearty laugh with others underscored the contrast with the silence that had settled between us. I moved through clusters of old friends and familiar faces, yet each interaction seemed to intensify my inner uncertainty. The familiar rhythms of the celebration provided comfort, but the undercurrent of change was impossible to ignore. That first day of the barbecue, with its blend of familial warmth and a shadow of silent disquiet, set the stage for a summer that promised to be as unpredictable as it was memorable. As the afternoon waned into an amber twilight, the ease of earlier moments began to fracture in subtle yet unmistakable ways. While the barbecue continued around us, voices rising in merry toasts and the playful banter of cousins echoing across the lawn, I found myself increasingly drawn into a private world of introspection. Dylan, who had always been the calm anchor in our shared journey, now seemed to recede like the distant hum of an off-tune melody. His eyes, once full of mutual understanding and warm humor, now held a cool reserve, as if each glance was carefully measured and held back. I tried to anchor myself in the familiar, reaching out to a neighbor with a cheerful remark about the deliciously charred ribs or the way the late summer air mingled with the scent of citrus and smoke. Yet every time I returned to Dylan, a heavy silence greeted me, a silence not born of the absence of words, but of their restraint. His responses were clipped, his tone even, as if he were reciting lines from a well-rehearsed script rather than sharing a genuine moment with me. In those instances, my heart sank, weighed down by an inexplicable sense of loss that crept in with every passing minute. I wandered through the gathering, searching for a fragment of the connection we once shared. The lively clinking of cutlery and bursts of laughter around me only deepened my isolation. At one point, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Dylan speaking with an old friend. His smile, though polite, failed to reach his eyes, and the brief conversation seemed to hover in a space between familiarity and something unspoken. I questioned whether the cheerful facade of the gathering was hiding more than it revealed, and whether our relationship had silently slipped into a chasm of miscommunication and unacknowledged grievances. Later that evening, while the group gathered for a round of shared stories near a crackling fire pit, I stole a moment of solitude. The quiet rustle of leaves and the gentle murmur of a nearby creek contrasted sharply with the distant, reserved presence of Dylan. I sat on the weathered wooden steps of the veranda, recalling our laughter-filled past encounters and the moments of effortless conversation that used to come so naturally, The warmth of nostalgia battled with a growing melancholy, a realization that beneath the surface, unspoken issues had been accumulating like shadows at dusk. As night fell and stars emerged in the inky sky, the distance between us felt more pronounced. Each step I took on the gravel path seemed to echo my inner disquiet, a silent metronome marking the gradual unraveling of what once felt secure and familiar. In that space of quiet introspection, the chill of uncertainty mingled with the sweet memory of better times. I could sense that this was not merely a temporary lapse, but a sign of deeper shifts unfolding within us, a divergence that might soon require answers, however painful they might be. Just as the afternoon began to ease into a gentle lull, an unexpected presence made itself known amid the swirl of voices and laughter, a presence that would soon upend the carefully constructed balance of my thoughts. I was near the refreshment table, idly watching as an elderly relative passed around iced lemonade when I noticed him approaching. Michael, a face I had not seen in many years, emerged from the periphery of my vision with an ease that belied the passage of time. At first, his arrival felt almost surreal, a spark of familiarity in the midst of change. His eyes, warm and observant, immediately found mine as if recalling long-forgotten conversations and shared confidences. There was a comfort in his smile that momentarily quelled the disquiet I had felt all day. Michael's presence carried an air of quiet assurance, a stark contrast to the cool reserve I had been experiencing from Dylan. In that instant, the world around us, with its lively chatter and clinking glassware, seemed to dim into a gentle backdrop as I became acutely aware of the connection we once had. We found ourselves naturally gravitating toward each other. The garden, adorned with fairy lights and the soft glow of twilight, became the stage for an impromptu reunion. Michael's voice, low and sincere, recalled memories of days when laughter was shared freely, and the promise of new beginnings was the only certainty. His stories of past adventures and quiet revelations about life's unpredictable turns resonated with a part of me that had long been yearning for reassurance. Each word he spoke drew me further from the day's earlier uncertainties, replacing them with a delicate yet unmistakable sense of hope. As we wandered away from the immediate buzz of the gathering, our conversation took on an almost effortless quality. Michael spoke of journeys taken and lessons learned, hinting at the trials of relationships that, like mine, had been marked by both joy and unexpected sorrow. With every shared memory, the distance between us seemed to shorten, as if the years apart were simply a minor pause in an ongoing story. The ease of his company was like a soothing balm, contrasting sharply with the cool detachment I had been grappling with earlier. There was an undeniable comfort in being in his presence, a subtle reminder of the value of genuine connection. In the midst of the holidays' festivities, the clamor of cheerful voices and the gentle rustling of summer trees faded into the background. Here, in this quiet interlude away from prying eyes, the past and present intermingled in a way that was both unexpected and deeply stirring. Michael's words carried an authenticity that challenged the veneer of calm I had tried so hard to maintain. His arrival was a serendipitous interruption, one that stirred long-dormant emotions and beckoned me to consider the possibility of a future unburdened by silent grievances. In that moment, the collision of familiar warmth and newfound understanding left me both captivated and uncertain, a silent acknowledgement that sometimes the most profound encounters occur when least anticipated, subtly steering the course of our lives in directions we never thought possible. The following days unfolded like a series of small, seemingly insignificant events that, when strung together, began to paint a picture of an unexpected new chapter in my life. The lingering afterglow of Michael's presence had subtly transformed my routine into something more vibrant. In the midst of a summer that was already heavy with memories and unspoken reflections, our paths continued to cross in the quiet corners of everyday tasks, making each encounter feel both ordinary and profoundly transformative. It began on a cool morning when I found myself in the garden, tasked with arranging freshly picked blooms from the neighboring fields into a modest vase on the porch. The sky was a gentle canvas of pastel hues as I delicately positioned each flower. In the midst of these simple duties, I sensed a presence behind me. Michael had joined me, almost as if drawn by the same invisible thread that connected our thoughts. His soft good morning was not just a greeting, but an invitation to share in the simplicity of the moment. We exchanged a few quiet words about the beauty of the day and the resilience of nature. Every sentence was laced with a mutual understanding that went beyond casual small talk. As the day progressed, our encounters grew less sporadic and more intentional. We found ourselves side by side, helping to set up decorations for a community lunch that the family had organized on the sprawling lawn. The task was humble, untangling strings of lights, carefully draping them over the budding branches of an old oak, and rearranging mismatched chairs so that everyone would have a spot under the open sky. Amid the clatter and the cheerful chatter of helpers, there was an unspoken rhythm in our collaboration. Michael's careful adjustments and my attention to detail blended seamlessly, creating a quiet harmony that resonated deep within me. During these shared moments, our conversations were unforced and natural. Michael spoke of small victories and minor setbacks, his words carrying the weight of lessons learned from past chapters of his life. I, too, shared fragments of my inner landscape, little observations about life's unpredictable turns, the fleeting nature of comfort, and the bittersweet taste of letting go. There was no urgency in our dialogue. Instead, each word was measured, honest, and reflective of a desire to rediscover a part of myself that had been dormant for far too long. In the midst of these day-to-day affairs, the closeness we experienced was not marked by dramatic gestures, but by a gentle shift in perspective. It was the way Michael would pause to listen intently when I mentioned a small detail from the morning, or the way his eyes sparkled briefly when he recounted a memory from a long-gone day. Together, we navigated the nuances of shared silence and spontaneous laughter, each moment reaffirming that connection was built not on grand declarations, but on the everyday acts of kindness and understanding. These simple interactions, woven into the fabric of daily life, began to reshape my understanding of what it meant to truly connect with another person. With each passing hour, it became evident that the depth of our bond lay in these authentic moments, a series of shared tasks and conversations that promised the possibility of a future crafted not by fate alone, but by the deliberate choices we made every day. The following evening, as dusk draped the sky in hues of muted purple and orange, the delicate fabric of my world felt as if it were unraveling right before me. The lingering warmth of the day was replaced by a cool introspection, a moment that demanded reflection on the fractures forming within my relationship with Dylan. Earlier that day, when I had taken a solitary walk through the quiet lanes of the neighborhood, the quiet solitude left me weighing the memories of our once effortless togetherness against the present tension that now seemed impenetrable. In the midst of these swirling thoughts, my phone rang, a call from Dylan. His voice, measured and formal, carried an unmistakable distance that chilled me more than the evening air. "We need to talk about yesterday," he began, his tone devoid of the warmth that had characterized our conversations in the past. The words, clipped and rehearsed, felt like a final attempt to bridge a growing chasm. I listened as he laid out the events of the day in a tone that suggested we were two individuals speaking from opposite sides of a widening divide. His effort to recall moments of shared laughter and tenderness fell short, replaced instead by reminders of small grievances and misunderstandings that now seemed insurmountable. I tried to interject, to recall the laughter of earlier days and the promises of reconciliation, but his responses were brief and resolute, as if each word was a carefully chosen stepping stone leading away from a future we had once planned together. With every sentence, it became increasingly apparent that the dialogue was not an effort to mend, but rather a quiet acknowledgement that our paths were diverging. The conversation, though laden with an undercurrent of regret, ended with a gentle yet firm closure that left me both numb and awakened to the stark reality before me. As the call ended, I stood by the window, watching the twilight deepen into night, and felt a deep internal pull. an urge to seek comfort and clarity in the one person who had unexpectedly re-entered my life. That same night, while the remnants of our family gathering were being cleared away and silence settled over the once bustling lawn, Michael approached me. His presence, soft and reassuring, served as a counterpoint to the formal detachment that had come to define my recent interactions. Without words, his look conveyed an understanding of my inner turmoil that went far beyond any spoken apology or explanation. In that quiet moment, the unresolved tensions of the day seemed to recede into the background, replaced by the heavy recognition that the choice I now faced was as inevitable as it was daunting. This was a moment of reckoning, a silent internal dialogue where every heartbeat underscored the truth that some paths, once set in motion, cannot be retraced. Standing between the unresolved past and the uncertain promise of the future, I realized that while attempts at repair may have their place, there comes a time when a decisive step forward is the only path to a new beginning. In the days that followed, the cadence of my routine was punctuated by moments that, although seemingly trivial, carried the weight of my unraveling heart. I found myself seeking solace in quiet, secluded walks where Michael would appear unexpectedly, a chance encounter beneath the dappled sunlight filtering through ancient trees, or a brief meeting by a hidden garden bench away from prying eyes. Each meeting was spontaneous, yet deliberate, a silent acknowledgement of an unspoken bond that both comforted and confounded me. During these clandestine rendezvous, the world seemed to fall away. The hum of the everyday faded into a distant murmur as we walked along winding paths, exchanging reflections that touched on past joys, disappointments, and the subtle regrets of choices made long ago. Michael's words, always measured and empathetic, stirred something deep within me. There was a unique rhythm to our conversations, a gentle back and forth that gradually built an intimacy defined not by overt declarations, but by shared silences, knowing glances, and the weight of unarticulated emotions. Yet, with every moment of closeness came an undeniable tide of inner turmoil. The warmth of his presence, which initially brought comfort and a flicker of hope, now became a source of persistent conflict. I was acutely aware of the boundaries I was crossing, the silent promises I was breaking with every furtive smile and secret meeting. My mind, already burdened by the finality of Dylan's recent words, became a battleground of conflicting emotions. On one side lay the familiarity and history of a partnership that had defined my life for years. On the other, the allure of a connection that seemed to echo with the promise of renewal and understanding. Each encounter with Michael deepened the rift within me. I felt the unmistakable pull of something new and vibrant, a connection that, in its subtlety, challenged everything I had assumed about loyalty and fulfillment. Yet, with every shared word and gentle laugh, a shadow of guilt crept into my thoughts, casting doubts on the choices I had made and the future I might be steering towards. The more we interacted, the more I struggled to reconcile the solace I found in his company with the inevitable consequences that loomed on the horizon. At night, as I lay awake listening to the quiet sounds of a house slowly succumbing to sleep, my mind replayed the day's meetings like a montage of secret scenes. Every stolen moment became both a balm for my weary soul and a reminder of the complexity of human emotions, a complexity that defied simple definitions of right and wrong. In these quiet hours, the internal conflict grew louder, the hidden connection with Michael intertwining with my lingering sense of responsibility and the inescapable reality that my life was about to change irrevocably. In the midst of a quiet afternoon, when the echoes of past laughter still lingered in the halls of our family home, a subtle yet unmistakable shift began to unfold, a shift that would soon leave no room for denial. It started with murmurs and sideways glances from those who knew me best. A close relative, whose keen eyes had always been attuned to the rhythm of our family's life, began to notice that I was no longer a constant presence at our usual gatherings. Instead, I would vanish for a few moments at a time, only to return with an unreadable expression and a hurried attempt to mask my inner disquiet. The realization crept slowly, like shadows lengthening at dusk. Whispers began to circulate among those present, whispers that questioned my frequent, unexplained absences and hinted at an unseen liaison that had taken root behind the curtains of our otherwise familiar world. The rumors grew steadily, carried by the natural intimacy of family ties and the ever-present need for everyone to be aware of each other's lives. Soon, the delicate balance of trust that had long been the foundation of our relationships began to crack, revealing a fissure that was both painful and inescapable. One evening, as the remnants of another family celebration were being gathered in hushed conversations, the truth was laid bare before me. A cousin, emboldened by concern and the responsibility of familial duty, confronted me quietly in the corridor. Their words were gentle, yet laced with a sorrow that mirrored the turmoil already swirling within me. "I couldn't help but notice you've been spending a lot of time away, and people are starting to talk," they said softly, the weight of their words punctuating the air with an almost tangible sense of foreboding. The confrontation was not harsh, but it carried the undeniable impact of a truth that could no longer be hidden. In that moment, I felt the magnitude of the choices I had made. The hidden meetings with Michael, once a quiet comfort in the midst of growing discontent, had now become the catalyst for a cascade of consequences that threatened to upend not only my own life, but also the lives of those around me. The murmur of accusations, the disapproving looks, and the subtle withdrawal of support from loved ones all converged into an overwhelming pressure that left me reeling. It was as if every step I had taken on this new path was being scrutinized, and the realization that my actions were no longer confined to the quiet corners of secret meetings was both humbling and heart-wrenching. As I stood there, confronted by the reality of the situation, a profound sadness took hold. I recognized that the bonds I had cherished were fraying, and the consequences of my choices were beginning to manifest in ways I had never fully anticipated. The clear divide between what once was and what was becoming forced me to face the inevitable truth that the delicate balance of trust and affection in my life was irrevocably altered. The air grew heavy with unspoken apologies and a foretaste of further changes that promised to reshape my future in ways both unexpected and deeply consequential.